episode of Sleep and Relax ASMR. I wanted to take a moment and say thank you for tuning in and listening to the podcast. I also wanted to mention that we just launched our website, which is SleepandRelaxASMR.com, just all spelled out. The website has all of our show episodes, news and announcements, and it also has information for brands that are interested in sponsoring the show. But most importantly, the website will make it easier to connect with you guys, and I would love to get in touch with as many fans as possible. So I invite you guys to check out SleepandRelaxASMR.com. It's all spelled out. If you're confused about the spelling, just check out the show notes, and there will be a direct link. But that's all for now. Thanks again for tuning in, and enjoy the episode. So today I will be reading some more of Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens. Last episode we finished off at chapter 3. So without further ado, let's start chapter 4. Chapter 4. Oliver is trapped and rescued. Oliver spent most of his days inside, either picking the stitched names off of Fagin's handkerchiefs or practicing Fagin's game. Before long, he began to beg the old gentleman to allow him to go out and work too. One morning, Fagin sent Oliver into the streets with Charlie Bates and the Dodger, who were to teach him his new job. The two boys, doing their best to stay out of sight, sneaked up close behind a fine old gentleman. He was a wealthy-looking person with white hair and gold spectacles. He had picked up a book in one of these shops and stood there reading. Soon, Oliver was shocked to see the Dodger plunge his hand into the fine old gentleman's pocket, pull out a handkerchief, and hand it to Charlie Bates. Then they both went running round the corner at full speed. In an instant, the whole mystery of the handkerchiefs, the jewels, and Fagin filled Oliver's mind. He stood for a moment, with the blood in all his veins tingling from terror. Confused and frightened, he ran. As Oliver began to run, the old gentleman put his hand in his pocket and found his handkerchief missing. Turning quickly and seeing Oliver scurrying away so fast, he shouted, "Stop, thief!" and ran off after him, book in hand. The Dodger and Charlie saw Oliver run by them, and they too ran off shooting, "Stop, thief! Stop, thief!" Away they all ran, yelling, screaming, and knocking people down as they turned the corners. Even all the dogs started barking. Terrified, Oliver ran to keep ahead of everybody chasing him. Then, pow! A sharp and clever punch knocked him from his feet. He looked up to see a man with a pale, twisted face staring very hard at him. The man turned and left as a crowd began to form. The fine old gentleman, whose handkerchief had been stolen, was among them. A police officer made his way through the crowd and grabbed Oliver by the collar. "It wasn't me, sir. It was the two other boys," Oliver cried, clasping his hands and looking around. "Don't hurt him," said the old gentleman in a kind and tender voice. Oliver was placed into a stone jail cell and searched. Nothing was found. The gentleman, named Mr. Brownlow, began to think Oliver was telling the truth. "There is something in that boy's face," he thought. "Something familiar that touches me. Can he be innocent?" Mr. Brownlow tried to remember all the faces from his past. Something made him feel he had seen Oliver before. He could not think when or where it might have been. Soon the old gentleman and Oliver stood before a judge by the name of Fang, known for his cruelty. The police officer stated that he had captured the subject, searched him, and found nothing on him. The judge would not listen to Mr. Brownlow as he tried to explain things. Judge Fang turned to Oliver. "What's your name?" Oliver tried to reply but couldn't talk. He felt like he was going to faint. The whole room seemed to be turning around and round. He could not answer the question. Knowing that no reply would make Mr. Fang even angrier, the police officer tried to help, saying, He says his name's Tom White, Your Honor." At this point, Oliver raised his head and looked around and asked for water. "Stuff and nonsense," said Mr. Fang. "Don't try to make a fool of me." "I think he really is ill, Your Honor," said the officer. Oliver fainted and fell to the floor. "Let him lie there," said Fang. "He'll soon be tired of that." "How do you plan to deal with the case, sir?" asked the clerk as he bent over the boy. "He is sentenced to 3 months at hard labor, of course. Clear the office," ordered Mr. Fang. A couple of men were getting ready to carry the boy to his jail cell when an older man rushed quickly toward the judge's bench. "Clear the office," cried Mr. Fang. "I will speak," cried the man. "I will not be turned away. I saw the pickpocket. I saw it all." The man went on. "I am the owner of the bookstore. Another boy did the robbery. I saw the whole thing, and I saw that this boy was shocked and surprised at what he saw." "Then the boy is free to go. Clear the office," roared Mr. Fang. Poor boy," said Mr. Brownlow, bending over him. "I'll take him with me." The driver of the coach, which Mr. Brownlow hired, stopped before a neat house on a quiet, shady street. Oliver soon found himself in a soft, clean bed. He had never before been given such kindness and care, but Oliver was very ill indeed, and fever raged through him for days and days. Weak and pale, he finally awoke one morning, as if from a bad dream. He raised himself up in the bed and looked around. "Where am I? This is not the room I went to sleep in," he said. "Hush, my dear," said an old lady softly. "You have been sick, very sick. Lie down again. That's it, little dear." With those words, the old lady gently placed Oliver's head upon the pillow. She looked so kindly and lovingly into his face that he could not help placing his little hand on hers and pulling her arm around his neck. "Mercy," said the old lady with tears in her eyes. "What a thankful little child it is. Pretty thing. What would his mother feel if she could see him now?" "Perhaps she does see me," whispered Oliver, folding his hands together. "Perhaps she has sat by me. I almost feel as if she has. But heaven is a long way off, and they are too happy up there to come down to the bedside of a poor boy." When he opened his eyes the next day, Oliver felt cheerful and happy. He was still too weak to walk, so the kind lady, Mrs. Bedwin, the housekeeper, had him carried downstairs to her room. Oliver enjoyed sitting in Mrs. Bedwin's room. He particularly liked to look at a painting on the wall. It was a portrait of someone's face, a pretty young woman. Just then, Mr. Brownlow entered the room. Poor boy," he said, clearing his throat. "How do you feel, Tom White?" "Very happy, sir, and very thankful for your goodness to me. But my name is Oliver, sir. Oliver Twist." "Strange name," said the old gentleman. "What made you tell the judge your name was White?" "I never told him so, sir," returned Oliver, surprised at Mr. Brownlow's question. This sounded so much like a fib that the old gentleman looked hard at Oliver's face. It was impossible to think he was lying. There was too much truth in his little eyes. "Perhaps there was some mistake," said Mr. Brownlow as he continued to stare at Oliver. He thought again how much Oliver's face reminded him of another face he had seen. He could not get it out of his mind. Then he looked up at the portrait above Oliver's head. He studied it, then stared again at the boy's face. The two faces looked almost alike. Mr. Brownlow let out such a sharp cry of wonder that Oliver fainted. Chapter 5. Oliver is safe. The thieves are not. In another part of the city, the Dodger and Charlie Bates were also fainting as they arrived home, but they were fainting from laughter. Charlie was joking about the chase after poor Oliver. He laughed so hard that he woke up Fagin. "Where's Oliver?" said Fagin, grabbing the Dodger tightly by the collar. "Why, the police have got him," he said. Picking up a pot of stew, Fagin threw it at the boy's head but missed. Instead, the stew splattered all over a stout man coming through the doorway, who demanded, "What's going on, Fagin?" Looking down beside him, the visitor added, "Come in, you old mutt. Don't be sneaking around as if you were ashamed of your master. Come in." A white, shaggy dog slinked into the room. His face was scratched and torn in 20 different places. The big man gave him a kick. Bullseye seemed to be used to bad treatment. He curled himself up in a corner without making a sound. "What are you up to? Treating the boys mean, you old crook," said the big man, seating himself. He was a frightening sight. He was unshaven, dressed in dirty clothes, and had a black eye. Well then, Bill Sykes," said Fagin. "You seem a little angry, Bill." "Perhaps I am," replied Sykes. He told Fagin to give him a drink, and mind you, don't poison it. This was said as a joke, but Fagin's face had an evil smile as he turned to the cupboard. After swallowing a few drinks, Sykes listened to the story of Oliver's arrest in the streets. "I'm afraid," said Fagin, "that this boy will say something that will get us in trouble. The game may be up for a lot of people. It would come out worse for you than it would for me, my dear," he said to Sykes. "If he hasn't told on us and is in prison, there's nothing to worry about until he gets out," said Mr. Sykes. "And then he must be taken care of. You must get hold of him somehow." Just then, Bet and Nancy entered the room. "The very thing," said Fagin. He went on to explain about Oliver to the two young ladies. "You're the person to go to find out what's become of the boy, Nancy," said Sykes. "Nobody knows you." "I'll not go, Bill," said Nancy. "She'll go, Fagin," said Sykes. "No, she won't, Fagin," said Nancy. "Yes, she will, Fagin," said Sykes. And Mr. Sykes was right. Nancy finally was forced to go to the police and find out what she could about Oliver. She learned that a gentleman had carried Oliver away in a coach to his own home. The coach driver remembered the name of the street. Nancy hurried back to Fagin with the information. "Oliver must be found," said Fagin. "If he hasn't blabbed about us to his new friends yet, we may still have time to close his mouth." Meanwhile, Oliver was lying safe in a warm bed. He had quickly recovered from his faint. However, the old gentleman and Mrs. Bedouin were careful to not talk about the face of the painting. These were happy days for Oliver, quiet, neat, and peaceful. Everybody was so kind and gentle, it seemed like heaven itself. Just as soon as Oliver was strong enough to put his clothes on properly, Mr. Brownlow ordered a complete new suit, new cap, and a new pair of shoes for him. Oliver asked Mrs. Bedouin to sell his old clothes and keep the money for herself. Oliver looked out of the parlor window and saw a peddler roll them up and walk away. Oliver happily thought he would never have to wear them again. They were truly sad rags to him. About a week later, Mr. Brownlow called Oliver into his study. Oliver was scared when he saw the serious look on his face. "Oh, don't tell me you are going to send me away, sir, please," cried Oliver. "Don't turn me out to wander in the streets again. Let me stay here and be a servant. Don't send me back to the awful place I came from, please. Have mercy upon a poor boy, sir." "My dear child," said the fine old gentleman, feeling sorry for Oliver, "you need not be afraid that I will leave you all alone unless you give me a reason." "I never will, sir," promised Oliver. "I hope not," said Mr. Brownlow. "Sad to say, I've been fooled before, but I trust you, and I am very interested in taking care of you. The people whom I have loved the most lie deep in their graves, but I still have my love for them in my heart." He encouraged Oliver to always tell the truth, adding, "You shall always have a friend as long as I am alive." At this moment, Mr. Brownlow's longtime friend, Mr. Grimwig, came through the door. He was a fat, old gentleman, rather lame in one leg. He had a way of tipping his head to one side when he spoke, like a parrot. "Look here, do you see my leg? I slipped on an orange peeling left on my stairs. I would bet that orange peels will kill me someday." "If I'm wrong, I'll eat my own head, sir," said Mr. Grimwig. This was a promise promise Mr. Grimwig made after many things he said. It was silly enough, but it was even more silly because his head was so large, a man could hardly hope to eat it all in one meal. "I'll eat my head, sir," repeated Mr. Grimwig, striking his walking stick upon the ground. "Hello, what's that?" He looked at Oliver. When Mr. Brownlow told him he didn't know much about the boy, Mr. Grimwig laughed. "He's pulling a trick on you," he said. Then he asked if the housekeeper counted her silverware at night to see if a tablespoon or two were ever missing. "I'll swear to that boy's honesty with my life," said Mr. Brownlow, knocking the table. "And I'll swear he's fooling you, or I'll eat my own head," said Mr. Grimwig. Mrs. Bedwin came in then. She carried some books Mr. Brownlow had ordered that morning at the bookstore. A delivery boy had just brought them over. "Stop the delivery boy, Mrs. Bedwin," said Mr. Brownlow. "There are some other books to be taken back too." "Send Oliver with them," said Mr. Grimwig, with a sly smile. "He will be sure to deliver them safely, you know. Let's see if you can really trust him. Give him the money and see if he ever comes back." "I won't be 10 minutes, sir," said Oliver eagerly. "Bless his sweet face," said the old lady. "Oh, you really expect him to come back, do you?" asked Mr. Grimwig. "The boy has a new suit of clothes, a set of value books under his arm, and money in his pocket. He'll join his old friends, the thieves, and laugh at you. If ever that boy returns to this house, sir, I'll eat my head." There the two friends sat, watching the clock after Oliver left. The men sat in silence. They would have a long wait before they saw Oliver again. Chapter 6. Oliver is kidnapped. Bill Sikes and Nancy also sat in silence. They were in the Three Cripples Inn, where they often went for a drink. Before long, Fagin entered. He smiled and sat down at the table. "Grin away," said Sikes, looking at him angrily. "Grin away. If they catch me, they'll catch you next, so you better take care of me." "Well, well, my dear," said Fagin, "I know all that. We both have reasons to find that boy, don't we?" Sikes butted in. "Where is it? Hand over the money." Yes, Bill," replied Fagin, taking a small package from his pocket. Sikes snatched it from him and began to count the coins inside. "This is all?" asked Sikes. "This is all you got for those things I stole?" "That's all," replied Fagin. "And now there's something you and Nancy need to do for me." He whispered something to them. They got up and were quickly on their way out the door. Meanwhile, Oliver Twist was on his way to the bookstore. He was thinking how happy he ought to feel, but he also thought about how much he would give for only one look at poor little Dick back at his orphan's work farm. Hungry and beaten, Dick might be weeping at that very moment. Oliver was startled from his thoughts by a young woman screaming out, "Oh, my dear brother." Oliver started to turn to see what the matter was when he was stopped by a pair of arms thrown tight around his neck. "Don't," cried Oliver, trying to get free. "Let go of me. I am not your brother. I haven't any sister or father or mother either. I'm an orphan." Just then, he saw her face under her straw hat for the first time. "Why, it's Nancy." "What the devil's this?" said a big man, bursting out of a shop, a shaggy white dog at his heels. "Young Oliver, come home to your poor mother, you young dog. Come home right now." "I don't belong to you," cried Oliver, trying to get out of the man's powerful hold. Weak and scared by the dog as well as the man, Oliver could do nothing. They rushed him through the narrow streets. Bill Sikes ordered him to take hold of Nancy's hand. Bullseye led the way. Like licking his lips, he looked at Oliver as if he wanted to get his teeth into the boy's throat. Oliver had no idea where they were taking him. Bullseye came to a stop before the door of a shop that was closed and looked empty. But once inside, Oliver saw that it was not. It was Fagin's new hideout. "Happy to see you looking so well, my dear," said Fagin, bowing. He noticed Oliver's new clothes. "The Dodger shall give you another suit, my dear, so you don't spoil that nice new one." Fagin went through the scared boy's suit pockets. He grabbed the money which Mr. Brownlow had given Oliver. "You can have those books," Fagin told Sykes. "They belong to the old gentleman," said Oliver, wringing his hands. "The old lady and all of them who were so kind to me will think I stole from them. Have mercy upon me and send the books back." All of a sudden, Oliver ran wildly from the room, screaming for help. Bullseye leaped up to follow him. Nancy shrieked, "Keep back the dog, he'll tear the boy to pieces." Bill Sykes pushed Nancy aside. Two of Fagin's boys returned, dragging Oliver between them. Fagin hit Oliver on his shoulders with a club and was raising for a second swing when Nancy grabbed it from his hand. "I wish I'd been struck dead in the street before I brought him here," cried the girl. For a girl she was, being only 17. "Now because of you, Fagin, he's a thief and a liar from now on. Isn't that enough, you bad old man? I stole for you when I was a child not half as old as him," she said, pointing to Oliver. "I have been in this business for 12 years now. It is my way of life. The cold, wet, dirty streets have become my home. You are the wicked person that drove me to them long ago, and you will keep me there, day and night, till I die." The girl made a rush at Fagin, but Sykes stopped her. Charlie Bates led Oliver into the kitchen. Here, with bursts of laughter, he pulled out Oliver's same old suit of clothes, the very same sad rags that Oliver had asked Mrs. Bedouin to sell. Poor Oliver put on his old clothes as Bates closed the kitchen door behind him. So that's the end of that chapter. I hope you guys are enjoying this. I will definitely keep on doing some more readings from Oliver Twist. But anyway, for now, that's the end of this episode. Thank you guys as always for tuning in. If you want to get in touch with the show, you can send a quick email to sleepandrelaxasmr@gmail.com or by our website, sleepandrelaxasmr.com. Once again, thanks for listening, and until next time.